This is Money Moves on VSiN, the sports betting network.
Hump day. What's going on, everybody? Welcome to this Wednesday edition of Money Moves. Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. You can't give me a what was that? Come on. You know the camel.
Well, you didn't, but I didn't hear it. Like, it sounded like it faded out. So I thought you were going to go say something and then you just got caught up and.
Nope.
Yeah, okay. All right.
Hump day.
There we go.
Ready to go on a Wednesday. This is going to be the peak of the week. I can already feel it. We are live in downtown Las Vegas, Circa Resort and Casino, as always, hanging out with you for the next 2 hours. Loaded show on deck. Kendall Valenzuela is going to join us in about 30 minutes as this is the final week for most fantasy leagues before the playoffs. Going to find out who you should be picking up this week if you need a little bit of help or trying to stream some options this week. She always helps us out. And that is just the tip of the iceberg for what we have on deck. So let's set the table with everything that is to come. Time for the rundown.
It's time for the top headlines and topics of the day. This is the Rundown.
I kind of put an all-encompassing hoops and hockey as our starter here because we've got college basketball, NBA. We're going to do a little stick and puck today. Pretty loaded in all facets today.
Yes, indeed. And both college and pro, very excited. Last night, college basketball, very good.
Ooh,
a lot of really good games, a lot of really tight games. It was great. You're just watching the end of one game, tuning into a next. So very excited for what today brings because we have a lot of really good contests and a full slate of NBA games as well that have a little bit of heft to them, including, unfortunately, my Los Angeles Clippers.
Yeah, we will talk about that overnight news item with Chris Paul in a little bit, but also just with college hoops. If I were to tell you that Kentucky held North Carolina to 67 points, you'd think they'd win that game, wouldn't you?
Dude, so I watched, I don't know if you were watching it, but because you were very busy last night as we were getting ready for the show, there was a stretch where Kentucky went over 8 minutes, nearly 9 minutes without a field goal in that game. And yet North Carolina could not cut into the lead.
Unbelievable.
It was one of the ugliest games you will see. Eventually get it done, but I was watching that and like, man, maybe I should change this because this is not great. But either way, fun basketball game. And Kentucky, not as bad defensively, but continuing to not look like the team a lot of people thought they were going to.
And with college football winding down, we're going to do a little West Coast bias with some college hoops involved today as well. And we mentioned the hockey, short slate tonight on the ice, just 5 games, but a really nice one price-wise. Usually you see like some minus 250, minus 300 favorites. None of those today. So see if we can find some value on the board. We'll also talk plenty of NFL as always. And I'm titling this one Numbers That Matter because there are a handful of really interesting stats for some of the games we have upcoming this weekend, including one you pulled for the Steelers that made me very sad for Pittsburgh fans.
Yes, very excited to have you go back down the path as I keep asking you. Remember when you thought they were really good?
Yeah, I don't want to talk about it.
Remember when you and that one mysterious Twitter account that has also gone very quiet after the 4-touchdown performance in week 1, in which I said was absolutely fraudulent and not real, and you guys kept defending Aaron Rodgers and the Pittsburgh Steelers, and you guys both haven't said anything.
I don't appreciate you continuing to claim that's my burner. Don't like it.
Can't prove that it's not.
What? Just log into my stuff. You'll see my accounts. I mean, you're over here trying to show your PIN number and bank logins to people.
No, that's Alex Blowers, who I never know what Alex's actual title is, but one of our great, wonderful behind-the-scenes people who I lost a bet to. But then when I went to log into my account to Zelle him the money, he kind of walked over to watch. I'm like, get out of here! What are you gonna watch me log into my bank account?
It was pretty entertaining. We're gonna kick things off though with college football because obviously we had the penultimate set of college football playoff selection committee rankings. We don't use that word enough, I gotta tell you. But no Lane, no problem. For all the talk about would Ole Miss fall following the departure of Lane Kiffin, they end up moving up from 7 back to number 6 in the top 25. Here's how your new top 4 shakes out, meaning the teams that in this format would get the first round bye. Ohio State stays 1, Indiana 2, Georgia up to 3, and Texas Tech now in that bye spot at number 4. So take that, Adam Burke. I think that just cements even more that should they lose in the Big 12 title game, they'll be in. That said, Texas A&M falls from 3 to 7 following their loss to Texas. And here's the most notable move to me.
This is the lead.
This is the one. Notre Dame drops from 9 to 10 below Alabama.
Yes.
Now, we have discussed on this show multiple times that we should have like that should have been the case to begin with. But now this feels like a course correction given the SEC title game that is coming up this weekend.
Just say it. We 2 weeks ago, we were all over this, and all of a sudden now it's like, I think, no bleep. This is how it's been setting up for a while. And you were expecting that this is going to happen. This is the fail-safe for Alabama.
Yep.
This means that Alabama is in with the third loss. And this means that everything that we talked about in the catastrophic scenario, if BYU wins the Big 12, Notre Dame is out. And Texas Tech will slip. Texas Tech will maybe, I don't know what will happen in terms of seeding. They won't have a bye wherever they end up. Either way, you'll get 2 Big 12 teams in. Notre Dame will slip out, and we'll have our playoff with, by the way, if Duke wins, as we learned yesterday too, with 2 group of 5s. Because Duke was not there. In theory, could Duke, with a win over Virginia, leap into the rankings on Selection Sunday? I guess. But I think that would be very hard if they weren't already ranked to then say, not only in the top 25, they're ahead of James Madison. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. So,
I would agree with that, especially considering we look at a JMU team that's a 23.5-point favorite now in their conference title game. Duke is available at 20-1 if you think that they can somehow get in. UNLV, I thought this was a little bit interesting because we had the discussion yesterday where they were a 50-1 shot. Yeah. That's been cut down to 30-1. If you made the conversation of like, okay, so let's say Duke beats Virginia, there's that spot to creep in for the second shot. Could they, if they beat Boise State, then get in? Yeah. I thought that was interesting that it was such a significant price move. Yeah, so we had discussed this, and my theory was, hey, if Duke wins, UNLV wins, would the committee look at UNLV as an 11-win conference champ with an avenged loss, if that being, of course, Boise on the road? Would they then be able to jump James Madison into the college football playoff if you get 2 group of 5s? However, I thought that when I saw JMU ranked, that means that theory is kiboshed. Like, again, it wouldn't make that much sense that Boise would be such a victory for UNLV that they would be able to leapfrog JMU unless, and I would say you rewatched it. I don't think you have a better sense of this. We don't get what the rankings are after 25, right? Correct. So I guess in theory, is UNLV 26? Right? I mean, that's the only way that you would really make this happen and say, hey, UNLV is 26 right now. And if they win, we view that win as good enough that then they would be able to just like take 25 from James Madison and they would be able to get in. I guess that's the case. And I guess the committee gives itself that wiggle room because they don't rank the teams beyond 25. So we have no idea where they're actually leaping teams up from. But I'm with you. I'm surprised that it went from 50-1 to 30-1. Because I would think that you need James Madison to remain unranked for that to happen. If anything, to me, I thought that was a deterrent for the argument. Yes. So there you go. And we will discuss that game a little bit later as well. That's our lone football game in West Coast Bias that we'll have. And we broached on it yesterday. We already don't think that UNLV is going to win that game. So maybe it's not as much of a factor to begin with. We'll tease the best bets. I'm hoping that they don't win that game. Can I ask you a question really quickly? Sure. So if you have, this is always, with the premise of if you have the bankroll to make it worth your while, are we not laying 1,800 on Alabama to make the college football playoff? Yeah. So, and that's what I was going to say. Like, what I thought was interesting is the minus 1,800, and no, I'm not because I don't have the bankroll. Right. But the minus 1,800 on Alabama to make now just even further in your brain, like, okay, this is going to happen. Even if they lose the SEC title game, they're in. Notre Dame, meanwhile, minus 500 to make. So the expectation still thinking that BYU is going to lose that game as a big underdog to Texas Tech, and there will be that spot available for them. Plus 380 now to miss. And the question that I have, and I think a lot of people have, is still this Miami situation. If we get to a position where Notre Dame and Miami are actually finally bundled in the same pool, comparative pool as they've termed it, does then head-to-head matter? And there is an opportunity for Miami to make it. Plus 650 is their price. They're minus 1,400 to miss. I still think no. That Miami's in, or that Miami has a shot? I still think no, that Miami's going to be on the outside looking in. Oh, Miami's out. That's what I'm saying. Yeah, like, even if they were to be in a position to be directly compared, I think the committee has told us repeatedly that Notre Dame is the team they wanted. 1,000 times over, yes. Okay. I mean, there's no, even then, so how about this? I thought this was brought up. I can't remember who brought this up, but I thought it was a brilliant point because right now the buffer is BYU, right, in the rankings? So it's Notre Dame, BYU, Miami. Let's say BYU loses. Well, we don't really hold conference championships against you, so BYU doesn't move. Okay. So then you still have the buffer between them. That has been a fascinating thing to me. Yeah. How much people continue to discuss Alabama losing the conference championship and that not bringing them down. Yet I haven't heard very many people say that about BYU. Like, oh yeah, if BYU loses to Texas Tech and they get bumped down again, then there's no buffer. Why would there be? if this is what they have said, should not hinder your opportunity in the rankings.
One could argue that's why they put BYU where they did.
For sure.
Because BYU is going to take care of itself, whether they win or whether they lose. BYU is simple. You win, you're in. You lose, you're out. But then you get to use we're not going to default teams for losing in a conference championship game. Thus, Alabama in if they don't win it. Thus, BYU remains between Notre Dame and Miami. If they were to end up losing, there'd be no reason to do that. So I think that's why they probably have them there.
I love that. I respect that Reese Davis asked the question to Hunter Yurachek during the rankings reveal show yesterday, and asked if there was any of that conversation as part of their thought process in the rankings. Said, absolutely not. And there will be another fresh rankings next week. You know, like that's the way it's handled for every one of these questions.
This is just a small thing, but every cent matters. If you think that Notre Dame's going to miss out on the playoff, this is a very small, just go bet BYU money line. Like there's a plus 425 on the screen. Notre Dame to miss the playoff is like what you have in the rundown, plus 380 or something like that. I'm surprised that those two, they should be identical prices, should they not? The BYU money line price or even the Big 12 money line price, both ways. And then Notre Dame's make or miss, because there's really no other universe or no other outcome that changes whether or not Notre Dame is into the college football playoff. So like the Big 12 championship money line should just be the yes, no for Notre Dame to make the playoff.
Completely agree. Also with that, Texas and Vandy on the outside looking in as well, despite how much Steve Sarkisian has tried to politic his way in. And I understand where he's coming from. And you wonder the ripple effects of scheduling non-conference games after something like this, because the committee is essentially telling you, did you not play that season opening game against Ohio State and you were a 2-loss team, you'd be in a different position.
By the way, just parlay Alabama to make with Miami to miss. It's only minus 764 on the money line. There you go.
On that note, you hear the music. We got to take our first time out of the day. We're just getting started here on Money Moves. When we come back, the stat heard around the world, or at least the one that I think is very interesting, from JVT on the Pittsburgh Steelers and what might the future hold for Mike Tomlin. That and more next on VSiN.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Back here on Money Moves, remember, before the line moves, the sharp plays is already there. They don't just follow the market, they help shape it. You're not going to outsmart billion-dollar sportsbooks or full-time sharps on your own, but with the sharp plays, you don't have to. Powered by advanced AI, connected to proven insider sources, and active across the NFL, NBA, Major League Baseball, and college hoops. The sharp plays delivers the edge serious bettors can rely on. You get free daily reports, real-time alerts, market-moving insights, all of it straight to your inbox or X feed. Since 2011, they've backed it all up with documented results, public logs, and transparent receipts. Check out sharpplays.com. Trusted by the pros, monitored by the books. Again, stay ahead of the line at sharpplays.com.
You know, I know you're in good. I dropped a bomb on you in the break. I'm going to drop a bomb on you right now.
Oh, no. I
know
think we do need to share what happened in the break.
I know you're in good with the Mormon community out there in Salt Lake and in Utah and Provo because of your successes on the sideline for BYU. And I'm fairly certain that I would make a money line price, yes, minus 175, that the CEO of Crumble Cookies knows who you are. Having said that, Crumble Cookies, mid.
They've taken a step back.
Yeah. Well, it's hard to take a step back when you've never been forward.
False.
Still.
Absolutely inaccurate. There was a time.
It's been at the front center of the world. I just had to say it right.
There was a time when I would have given my firstborn child for an unlimited supply of Crumble Cookie when they were at the top of their game.
I mean, that's not that dramatic. I give up my firstborn for a lot of stuff.
Changer for a while. And I would even come on air frequently and be like, what can I do for a Crumble sponsorship? I am in it. I had the app. I was checking out the flavors every week. I would go once a week and get the 4-box so I could get an assortment. I was that person, but they've changed and it's too much now. I don't want a little cake. Okay. I want like a good meaty cookie. You're making it too much. We're trying too hard.
I'm sorry. I'm laughing. Quick aside, then we get back to it. When LeBron James' son, Bronny James, made his debut last season, I went on Follow the Money and I said, I bet the soul of my firstborn child that Bronny gets a bucket tonight because I figured, LeBron would want him to, whatever. And, of course, he doesn't. And so I get 10, oh, you said you'd bet your son's soul. Where are you now? I'm still here. Relax.
His soul is gone. His soul is gone.
I've been raising an empty husk at home. We paid this price. Okay?
Can you hit us real quickly with the question? of the commercial break?
No, we'll save it. We'll save it.
Okay.
We'll save it. We've dilly-dallied long enough. I'll save it, but it's quite the question.
Because strong disagree. Yeah. I'll just put that. That could be a tease for a little bit later.
I might have just unsubscribed to a podcast because of
Wow. An important one, too. Yeah. One very beloved to you deep down in your soul. Let's get into some NFL, though, because the Pittsburgh Steelers, very interesting case for them this year after the strong start that they had, have now lost 5 of the last 7 games. The division slipping away. Huge AFC North game on deck Sunday at Baltimore. They're getting 6 against the Ravens, total 43.5. You texted me a tweet of a stat
I did.
That is pretty damning.
The Steelers have not completed a downfield pass in 36 days. That means they are 0 of 13 with 3 interceptions the last 5 games combined on throws of 20 or more yards downfield.
Woof. Woof.
Nothing.
So bad.
And I will just say, again, not like I am some clairvoyant, but I actually think there's a good lesson here. This is such a good example of being able to read between the numbers. And like when people get mad about like PFF grades or things like that, these are the things you're talking about. You saw this coming from a mile away. Go back to the first game that we discussed with the Steelers, where he throws for 4 touchdowns. And everybody's like, how can you just say that he's like the 24th quarterback that week? He threw for 4 touchdowns. The average depth of target was 4 yards downfield. He had the most yards after catch of any quarterback that week. And that has been a common theme for this offense throughout the entire season. And so this isn't the, I told you so. I will take the other path and go, this is what those types of people are looking at when you can't understand why a high completion percentage and 4 touchdowns and no interceptions isn't really that good of a performance. Stormy, if I toss you a ball from here to here and you run for 75 yards.
Why is that a positive stat for you?
Why should I get credit for what you did? That is exactly what we're talking about here. And you did. You saw it coming. And let's zoom that out even further with the Steelers team. Go back to the game that infuriated me beyond belief, and I'll do it the inverse of this. Remember when they played the New England Patriots, and the Patriots like recovered 4 different fumbles and all those sort of things. Again, reading into the box score and all those types of things matter. And so this is just a microcosm of what we're talking about here. You saw this coming with the Steelers. The passing attack was mundane. It wasn't really dynamic. They were hanging on by a thread. And also, a lot of people kept asking the question all year long, how are the Ravens still favored to win this division? How are the Ravens still favored to win this division? This team got off to, what was it, like a 5-2 start or whatever it was? That's why. There was always evidence in the numbers that this team was fugazi, and here we are. And they're now in a desperate race in the AFC North.
It was the 4-1 start, but
4-1, thank you.
They, I do want to defend myself at least to an extent, though.
I mean, you did think he was the MVP.
Shut up. Okay, so this is the thing. You make these things up. It's like every time you tell the story about how much I was a believer in Aaron Rodgers, Mike Tomlin, and the Steelers, it adds an extra layer. And so now it's MVP. Next week it'll be Super Bowl, whatever it is. With that said,
getting kind of defensive.
In my thought process in the summertime, it was, I think this can work because all you really need is average baseline quarterback play from Aaron Rodgers, who has a nice weapon in DK Metcalf. The run game, as long as you can do enough to where Aaron Rodgers doesn't have to do everything and he's not turning over the ball. The defense is so good that you should be able to have another 8+ win season, make the playoffs as a wild card team, whatever it is. You should be good enough to do that again. Unfortunately, the most expensive defense in the National Football League has been god-awful this year. So for as much as Aaron Rodgers has struggled, and yes, those underlying metrics were damning for him, he hasn't had any of the support that you expected him to have going into the season either. And so with that, this is
Aaron Rodgers' fault.
A Steelers team. No, I mean, it looked bad the other day, and he's injured now too. So even with it being the non-throwing wrist, it's still not ideal for your situation. With that now, and we go through this cycle every single year with Mike Tomlin, but this year it feels a little bit more real than I think it has in years past. You have the fans booing and calling out "Fire Tomlin," chanting in the stadium. And here is what he had to say about that on the podium yesterday.
Football is our game. We're in the sport entertainment business. And so if you root for the Steelers, entertaining them is winning. And so when you're not winning, it's not entertaining. And if you've been in this business, you understand that. And so I respect it. I share frustrations. I understand what makes this thing go. And winning is what makes this thing go.
And to his point, the winning isn't happening right now. And you're having a bunch of former players that are coming out on their respective podcasts talking about how maybe this is time for change. Here's James Harrison on the Debo and Joe podcast, as well as Big Ben on his Football and Pod.
And I know the Steelers historically don't move on from coaches. But I think it's time that history be made, because right now, the only history we're making is being the worst Pittsburgh Steelers team statistically almost in the history of the organization.
No, it's being talked about around here a lot. Maybe it's time. Maybe it's a clean house time. Maybe it is. Maybe it's time. And I like Coach Tomlin. I have a lot of respect for Coach Tomlin. But maybe it's best for him too.
Sure.
Maybe a fresh start for him is what's best.
Can I read you my other favorite Steelers-related tweet from the week?
Go for it.
Seth Rorabaugh, I believe is how you pronounce his name. He's a Penguins writer for the Pittsburgh Tribune. Mike Tomlin will say something like, "We can't eat soup with forks, we need spoons." And then the Steelers will sign a 2018 Pro Bowler to the practice squad. Who did they claim on waivers?
Adam Thielen.
Who was a Pro Bowler in 2018.
Also,
I mean, come on, dude.
should have just stayed in Carolina, Adam.
Yeah, I mean, well, what was the quote from him? "I want another shot at a Super Bowl." Like,
Yeah.
you might have picked the wrong team there, buddy.
How's that going?
Yeah.
The one thing I will say about the Steelers and Tomlin, and it is of note, right? Steelers haven't won a playoff game in nearly a decade. 2016 divisional round, last time they won in the postseason. Even in the 4 wild card games they have made since. It's like you're a fringe team, you get in, you lose by double digits more often than not. Also, just remember, and maybe a change will do you good, and maybe it's just like he needs a refresh, like Ben said, and the team does too. But also, like, what did we just talk about with James Franklin and all of that? Like, the grass isn't always greener. Look at the Tennessee Titans. I'm sure they wish they had Mike Vrabel right now and the success that he's having with the New England Patriots. Right down the road there with Penn State with James Franklin. We were sharing back and forth that screenshot of the recruiting rankings with this being National Signing Day week and how they are the 138th recruiting class with 4 commits. And you got Missouri State and FCS Montana State ahead of you in recruiting when you move on from James Franklin. Don't have a coach.
Well, so there's 2 points. First off, the market is, having said all this, betting them this week. I mean, we're down at 5.5 in a couple of spots for their matchup against the Ravens. Don't necessarily agree with that. So we'll see if that gets low enough that Baltimore is worth considering on a play. The other is when you look at the Steelers team overall and where they're going to end up. I'm going to be curious to see. I mean, I think you just need a full clean out. They've been clinging to this. They're almost like what the Colts did for like 6 straight years. Remember, every year was like Phillip Rivers, Matt Ryan, trying to just fill the hole at quarterback. You got to strip it down. You just got to go try and get the guy. Kenny Pickett didn't work. Now you got to go see if you can do it.
Both the Ravens and Steelers still sitting at 6-6, yet Baltimore minus 240 favorites in the AFC North. The Steelers plus 285, still the second shot on the board. Okay, we got to step aside here. When we come back, Kendall Valenzuela is going to join us of Fantasy Life, talk through some of the notable injuries this week, players you might want to grab for what is the last week before the fantasy postseason.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Last week before the fantasy playoffs, also last week where we got teams on bye. So you know that means we got to check in with our girl Kendall Valenzuela of Fantasy Life, who joins us here on the Progressive Guest Line. Fantasy football analyst. You can also catch her on SiriusXM Channel 87 Fantasy. Welcome in, Kendall. So much to get to. And I want to start with some news with the Detroit Lions. There were some questions about what things might look like with Amon-Ra St. Brown this week, and Ian Rappaport coming out this morning saying it's not looking good. His understanding was it's going to be a 1 to 2 week injury, most likely going to miss the game on Thursday with that low ankle sprain. What should people do if they're trying to backfill that spot?
Listen, it's Isaac Tesla season. That's where you go if you need a spot start this week. I know we have 4 teams on a bye, so you might be without one of your bigger wide receivers. Maybe you need a flex spot, but Isaac Tesla is the guy to look at. I was going to offer Khalif Raymond. Like, I wish there were other opportunities here to get another viable option, but Khalif Raymond, the last time I looked, I haven't seen today, but he wasn't practicing with that ankle injury. So I think that you're going to have a chance to have 2 viable fantasy wide receivers come out of this game because the Detroit Lions are playing the Dallas Cowboys. And we always like to pick on them because they give up the most fantasy points to wide receivers so far this season. So we know that Jameson Williams is going to get his, but we also know that Isaac Tesla has a chance to really be a boom or bust here. So if you need one player, if you need a boom that can potentially happen to get you to the playoffs, he is definitely the guy that you want to go and pick up.
All right, what about Justin Herbert? How do we handle this? Not only what we do with him, but the trickle-down effect of whether or not he plays and some of the skill position players around him.
Yeah, I have a feeling that he's going to play just from what we've read, but because it was, he had a successful hand surgery on Monday. That was his non-throwing hand. So, even if he is playing, though, I don't think a lot of people have looked around at the Chargers and said, well, I can't wait to start Keenan Allen. I can't wait to start Quentin Johnston. I think Ladd McConkey is really the one guy, and Oronde Gadsden too, but I've really had to move Oronde Gadsden down my rankings. I just updated him actually at fantasylife.com. I believe I have him at tight end 7 or 8 this week, which is a little bit of a fall that we've seen him have, a little bit of a fall from grace there. So I think those are the two guys you look at. Justin Herbert hasn't necessarily been someone that you go to week in and week out as a fantasy startable quarterback. And then you just have to watch for Omarion Hampton. Like if Omarion Hampton, if they tell us that he's going to be back, I think that if they don't have Justin Herbert, they're going to be running the ball a lot. I think that him and Vidal could be possible starters for you, but if not, then it's Omarion Hampton season if he comes back. But again, that's a tough call because it's Monday night. I hope we get an update by Friday if we know that he's playing or not.
I was actually just complaining to JVT a little bit earlier about how my running back room for my fantasy team, I had Saquon and David Montgomery sack Kamani Vidal like a dummy because he goes off and has a day. We also, last segment, Kendall, did a deep dive on the Pittsburgh Steelers and the struggles that Aaron Rodgers specifically has had this year. Now him dealing with a left wrist injury as well. How much should fantasy owners of DK Metcalf be panicking here if they've got him on their playoff roster?
Yeah, I think, to be honest, and you guys know I'm a Seahawks fan, so I've been panicking about DK Metcalf for years because I just don't think he lives up to his fantasy football expectations. Now, I can't remember specifically where he went, where his ADP was, his average draft position, but I can't imagine that fantasy managers have been necessarily happy with starting him. I mean, he has not been this boom guy. Like, you've gotten to floor, but even the floor has not been, it just hasn't been good. And I just think at the end of the day, I don't know why they made this move for DK Metcalf with how uninvolved sometimes he can be. Like, you look at some of his targets throughout some games, you're getting, 8 and 8, but then you get down to 5, 4, 5, 7. It's just one of these things where you look around and you say, okay, I'm getting 6.5 to 14 fantasy points every single week from DK Metcalf. So he's someone that I just move down the ranks weekly. It feels like it's not someone that I have a ton of. I just don't have a ton of him. And I'm really excited about that because it just hasn't been good. He's my wide receiver 26 this week. So once we get into that range of wide receivers, it's like, that they have a yellow or red flag attached to their name. And so you kind of just have to decide, am I going to roll with some like this red flag or the other one? So yeah, if we don't see Aaron Rodgers out there, I mean, I just think that DK Metcalf, it's kind of lateral for me because he's been so disappointing.
All right, as Stormy's pointed out, playoff week, with some of these teams on buys, who would we look at to add here on a waiver wire that could be available?
Yeah, I think we mentioned Isaac Tesla to start the show. I think he's going to be the big name. A.D. Mitchell, if he's available, and I can't, I'm very surprised that we're talking in this way about A.D. Mitchell, but he's maximizing his starter reps with the Jets. Garrett Wilson, not back yet, and of course, we have to reevaluate once he does come back, which I think he is going to. I know some people have talked about them shutting him down for the rest of the season, but the Jets aren't giving up. Like, we've seen that in the last couple of games. They are not giving up, but A.D. Mitchell right now is just in the 2 games as a starter, 92% route participation rate, which we love. He's got a 32% target share. So he's someone that's very opposite of Isaac Tesla, like we talk about. Isaac Tesla is good for 1 game until Amon-Ra St. Brown comes back. A.D. Mitchell could be someone that you pick up this week and actually start the rest of the season. It might not be pretty every single time, but he's definitely someone that I think you need to take a look at, especially if you have just wide receiver injuries or some guys that just aren't stepping up for you. He's going to be the name you want to know. And then I'll say, a couple of Saints players, which again, crazy that we're talking about. But Devon Vele is someone, a wide receiver for them that I've seen as their wide receiver too, because, and Chris Olave is still there. It's still his city, but he's someone to know. And then Devin Neal at running back as well with Alvin Kamara out. He is definitely a running back streamer that you can look at.
Fantasy football analyst Kendall Valenzuela of Fantasy Life joining us here on the Progressive Guest Line. And speaking to some wide receiver injuries, Drake London day to day. I know he has a chance to play Sunday, but Marvin Harrison suffered another injury against the Bucs. Like, there are some of those spots where I'm sure people are looking to backfill. Looking at your article from this week as well, I know the Carolina Panthers are on bye, but Jalen Coker, somebody you think people could be picking up here down the stretch?
I think so. If we're getting, I feel like we talk about the Panthers every single week, and sometimes I'm like, I don't know what Bryce Young we're going to get, but 17.4 fantasy points from Jalen Coker off 4 receptions, 74 yards and a touchdown. So he also led the team in targets, which is something we always want to pay attention to. So I think if you have Coker or you see him dropped, because I see a lot of these guys sometimes dropped because of their bye week, I think you can pick him up. I think, Bryce Young, again, I'm unsure what kind of Bryce Young we're going to get down the stretch here, but it's a viable starter on an offense that if they really are ascending a little bit, as much as the Panthers can, I think a lot of people, myself included, counted them out against the Rams. So if they're able to put up a game like that, maybe down the stretch, Bryce Young can give us some good fantasy days from other guys. And so, Jalen Coker, definitely a wide receiver to go and get.
I've heard a lot of excitement for Darren Waller since his return, but how do you even catch this falling knife with Miami, considering Tua does share the ball pretty well? And even the receptions from last week were pretty spread out.
Yeah, I think it's exactly like you said. It's a risk. If you're, I think in a tight end premium league, you're looking at Darren Waller, and even then he's probably going to be a little bit scooped up from there. I saw he was 30% rostered. But you like the role that he has, I should say. And you really like their fantasy playoff schedule. Like, once you get outside the top 5 or 6 tight ends every single week, I know we don't have George Kittle this week, it almost becomes a streamable matchup for you. So you go in and week out, you say, oh, Chicago looks good this week. Kyle Pitts looks good this week. So Darren Waller, if you really want to look at someone that's streamable, that has a really nice fantasy playoff schedule, they play the Steelers, the Bengals, and the Buccaneers from weeks 15, 16, and 17. So those are good enough matchups where you could tell yourself, in a perfect world, if Tua Tagovailoa really is able to step up and this team, just decides to not throw everything away, that Darren Waller, because of his role, because of his target share, everything that he's able to get, he can be viable for you. But like you said, it's like catching a falling knife, and you have to just believe in Tua Tagovailoa, which I don't know if many people do still.
With that, anyone else from the tight end position you think could be worth a look? Because you do mention, George Kittle unavailable this week. If there are options, who would they be?
Yeah, I think the best one this week, and I think the rest of the way too, like you could look at Brenton Strange. He's actually my tight end 5 this week for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And we saw Brenton Strange have the second most targets, the second most receiving yards in week 13 against the Titans. And so to me, I look at him and his schedule more importantly. And that's how a lot of these matchups in my rankings are always decided. But you look at the weeks ahead, he plays the Colts twice. He plays the Colts this week, and then I believe it's week 18. They give up the 4th most fantasy points to tight ends. So I know they're going to be without Sauce Gardner for a couple weeks, but for this week, especially if you need a streamer, Brenton Strange, there's not many times that you get someone that you could get off the waiver wire that's instantly a top 5, top 6 tight end for the week. So he's my absolute favorite this week, and maybe rest of the season for someone you could pick up and just save.
Always great to have you on each and every week. Thank you so much, Kendall. We appreciate your time.
Of course. Yeah. Bye, guys.
And again, make sure you check out all the work over at fantasylife.com. You can also follow Kendall with the tweets when you go to @KValenzuela17, and always regularly SiriusXM Fantasy Channel 87 as well. How's your fantasy team doing?
You did that on purpose. You know exactly how it went. I just lost $50.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Come on now.
Oh, I'm not making the playoffs, so
Good.
It is what it is. I haven't taken enough good advice this year. I should have listened to Kendall more.
Yeah. Well, you asked every week about your team.
I know, and then I made my own decisions.
What was the point of asking?
It's my own problem. That's what I said. It's my own problem. Isn't that that's one of the many typical women things I feel like you throw at me, is like you ask questions to see if you can get confirmation bias, and if you don't get it, you just do what you're going to want to do anyways. On that note, we got to step aside. Always appreciate Kendall, though. She'll be back with us again same time next Wednesday. When we come back, I'm looking to you. I need some updates on the NBA, and I'm sorry to make you sad again. Unfortunate news for the Clippers overnight.
You're watching Money Moves here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
games on tap in the association tonight.
Let's talk about every single one of them and nothing else.
To Money Moves on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Stormy, Buonantony, Jonathan Von Tobel with you. JVT makes that comment because of where we must begin the conversation today. Your Clippers are visiting the Hawks tonight. Chris Paul, who, if you remember, rejoined the Clippers in July, wants to finish his career with the franchise he spent 6 seasons with. Is the club's franchise leader in total assists and steals. Well, he posts on Instagram a little before 3 a.m. that he learned he was being sent home to L.A. from Atlanta. And then we see the statement to ESPN this morning from Clippers president of basketball ops. We are parting ways with Chris, and he will no longer be with the team. We will work with him on the next step of his career. How you feeling?
No, look, not really great. Frankly, somewhat irritated. I will follow this report up with one more from Shams Charania, who tweeted out about 2.5 hours ago. Chris Paul and his leadership style clashed with the Clippers, sources told ESPN. Paul has been vocal in holding management, coaches, and players accountable, which the team felt became disruptive. Specifically, Ty Lue was not on speaking terms with Paul for several weeks. So, I mean, I'll just say...
Is that a real report?
That's a real report from Shams Charania.
Leadership didn't like being held accountable. That's insane.
Alleged adults who are paid millions of dollars to do this. And I will say... it is irritating and grating, and I will take you back to the end of the Clippers season last year, where you force a Game 7 against the Denver Nuggets, and you completely no-show in that game. And I have said it time and time again, and I hate to say it, and I sent the tweet out, and it's not all his fault. It's everybody's fault with this organization. But I'm out. I'm out on Kawhi. We're done with Ty Lue. This is an absolute embarrassment for this franchise. And trust me, I'm a Clippers fan. There's been a long history of embarrassing moments for the Los Angeles Clippers. But for you to be turned off, your lackadaisical, nonchalant mentality that has just been perforated throughout this entire franchise for many years. And I'm sorry, but Kawhi is at the center of that. I've said 1,000 times. You know, the lackadaisical, like, blasé, like, nothing's wrong, everything's okay, I don't really get up or down. You know, that works at times. But it doesn't work when you need an adult in the room to kind of push everybody to be accountable for your failings and your shortcomings. And then you finally get one, and you are so thin-skinned and immature that you bristle at it to the point where you kick a player off the team because you can't handle the fact that he's asking you in a season in which you had improved your team to the point where it looked like you were going to have a better record potentially this year. Don't know if you're going to win the finals. Don't know if you did anything, but you had built a team of veterans for the point of winning 50 games. And you are so immature that you have to kick this guy off the team because you can't hear it anymore. There's no leadership. It is rudderless. Ty Lue should be on the way out. Give it to Jeff Van Gundy, which, by the way, you talk about bristling at guys. Jeff Van Gundy? Come on now. That dude's going to kick your ass up and down the court 1,000 times over. I think this is embarrassing for this. And this goes back to the offseason where they clearly paid Kawhi underneath the desk for the money, and they got absolutely nothing out of it. This is ridiculous. And it's just another page in the story of a team that I think at this point right now, we're done. The ship has sailed. Blow it up. Get rid of everybody. You've set up your contracts to the point, Stormy, where in 2 off seasons from now, you have literally nobody on the books except for one player. It's time to start fast forwarding to getting this thing cleaned up. It's ridiculous.
I honestly thought you were going to get even more heated. I thought we were going to get full John Von Triggered here.
I mean, it's been a slow burn. You've been kind of waiting for this for a long time.
I can tell it's just been simmering for you for a while. Clippers, since the 3-2 start this year, dropped 14 of their last 16. They entered tonight on a 5-game skid, getting 3.5 in Atlanta in this spot. We have seen some money go toward the under, down from 229 to 226.5. And I mean, from a roster standpoint, you know, you lose Bradley Beal, one of the big offseason signings, to a season-ending injury. Kawhi's missed 10 games this year. And I saw this stat. Only played 277 of 492 since joining the team in 19, but he's getting paid over $300 million. Like, it hasn't been good. And I guess for as far as this goes tonight, now you've got one of your leaders that's trying to actually hold people accountable, unavailable for you. And I know he was coming off the bench. He was one of those guys this year anyways, but what do you make of at least tonight's action and how you view betting the Clippers on a game-to-game basis? Well,
I mean, before all this came down, I had played 3 with Atlanta. So, I mean, I don't know if this is good or bad or whatever it is for this team. I mean, I don't know. they're such lazy weirdos that this actually might be great for them, right? Like, oh, thank God, nobody's there to be mean to us. Maybe we can now play free. Who knows? But I do think, the stretch of play that the Hawks have been on, and I think that's the focus here. Atlanta's been thriving without Trae Young. They played 17 games without him. They're 11-6 straight up and against the spread. They've done a phenomenal job defensively over that span. 112 points per 100 possessions in non-garbage time allowed. That's 7th best in the NBA. They're 12th in net rating. But I think this is two contrasting styles that are going to meet today that is probably going to really bother Los Angeles. One of the things the Hawks are doing really well in this span without Trae Young, they're getting out in transition, they're running, they're doing it effectively. I mean, Stormy, they're big, they're long, they're athletic, and they're doing exactly what you would think a team of this ilk would do. First in offensive efficiency in transition, first in points added per 100 possessions in transition, fourth in transition frequency, and this is all over the span of the 17 games without Trae Young. And you're taking on a Los Angeles team 29th in opponent points added per 100 possessions through transition, 30th in opponent offensive efficiency in transition. You get the point here. There's a lot more that would point to a top 5 offense in transition versus a bottom 1. I mean, 29th or 30th for the Clippers. They're a slow, old, creaky team that doesn't like to get up and down the floor. And I think the Hawks are going to force them to do just that tonight. So the Hawks, I think, are in a pretty good spot. I laid 3. Interestingly enough, some spots opened 4.5 and got down to as low as 3. We're kind of creeping back. You mentioned it. We're sitting at 3.5. You mentioned the total as well coming off of that. And Atlanta is coming off of a loss in Detroit, but still, they've covered 3 straight. They're the more young, athletic team. I just think this bodes well for Atlanta. And who knows what the noise means for the Clippers. I mean, nobody on that roster really seems to care. So I don't think they would really care at all that there's some conversation about the, behind the scenes issues with this club that's kind of been out there for a while now.
Let's go out to Indiana. Nuggets laying up to 8.5 now against the Pacers, total 236.5. Being on the road has actually been a good thing for the Nuggets. They've lost 4 straight at Ball Arena, but entered tonight's game in Indiana on a 7-game road win streak. I know Jamal Murray was questionable with the right ankle sprain, expected to play from what I was seeing. Do you think that's right?
I haven't seen anything. I mean, it depends on whether or not he participates in shoot around. And even if he does, who knows if he's going to be out there. I would say that the Nuggets do desperately need it. You've mentioned the road stretch. That's all well and good, but if you expand out to just the last 5 games and even longer for the Nuggets, you go back to a home game to the Bulls where they lost about 2 or 3 weeks ago. This team all of a sudden has completely disappeared on the defensive end. Last 2 weeks for Denver, worst defensive rating in the NBA, 125 points per 100 possessions allowed in non-garbage time, 105.7 defensive rating in the half court. That's abysmal. And then, of course, in transition, giving up about 1.3 points every 100 possessions or every possession in transition. So this team is really declined defensively, and it's part of its injury. Christian Brown's not playing. Aaron Gordon's not playing. You mentioned Jamal Murray potentially being out as well. And for the Indiana Pacers, I'll rewind back. This has kind of been our point of reference for Indiana, the game against Charlotte. Remember, the Hornets go off as a road favorite that we had discussed against the Indiana Pacers. Pacers have lost, however many amount in a row. You laugh, but it matters because since that game, they are 6-1 against the spread, the Pacers. So that has been a point that has really sparked them going forward. They're also much healthier. Aaron Nesmith, again, is the only notable name that is not playing here. So actually, I'm a little tempted by Indiana today. If you kind of maintain this just poor defensive play for Denver, the absences are there. Maybe they can stay inside of a big number. This is not one of the 2 plays that I made, but it's definitely on the short list for me, especially if the market continues to kind of climb. When we'll see if Jamal Murray ends up playing tonight too.
And Indiana does play better at home too. They've only got 4 wins this season, but all 4 of them have been at home, including 2 of their last 3. I know it's against the Wizards and Bulls, but still like winning games in addition to the ATS record that you just mentioned. Anything else on tonight's card you want to hit the last 90 seconds? Yeah,
let's go with the ugly dog here. Took 8 with the Brooklyn Nets against the Chicago Bulls. Chicago, as we know, has really hit the skids. Defensively, they've really slipped. And we were kind of waiting for the bottom to fall out. Chicago got off to that really great start to begin the year, but a lot of it was carried by an offense that was playing inexplicably well. But it was covering up an issue with this defense. This defense is pretty bad. They slipped 20th in defensive efficiency, giving up about 117.4 points per 100 possessions. They don't turn over opponents at all. A 12.2% defensive turnover rate's abysmal, so you're not getting extra possessions on the other end. You're just overly reliant. And the injury report, very crowded today. Mann, I think, was downgraded today for the Chicago Bulls, amongst some other big names that are out there for Chicago that could not play tonight. So I think this is just one of those where the skid is continuing for Chicago. And I think the market is a little slow to react here. So we'll go ahead and we'll bank against that. This team can cover a big number. By the way, I said man. Trey Jones is looks like has been downgraded. Terrence Mann will not play for the Brooklyn Nets.
We got a lot going on with the NBA, the NHL, college hoops, football still in full swing. And right now, it's the best time of year for bettors. The all-new Boomer Sportsbook is bringing you the action for it all. And when you use our code VEASAN250 when you sign up for Boomer's mobile account, they're going to match your first deposit up to $250 in bonus bets. Plus, when we're talking all football spreads, minus 105 prices every regular season game the rest of the way. Download the Boomer Sportsbook app today. You can learn more at betwithboomer.com. Must be 21 or older. Terms and conditions do apply. Please bet responsibly. We're going to step aside and actually get into a little more college hoops, some intriguing results from last night's card and some more big games coming up tonight. We will break it all down next on Money Moves.